Today on Globesvlille, Cici and Tati will be giving the lowdown on social gist about the recent release of the Palm Sunday Massacre killer, as well as Trump's tweets about the DACA program coming to a possible close, and Israel's plan on deporting 20,000 immigrants back to Rwanda and Uganda. Get the gist of it at 4.
Having a great day.
Yeah, right. Hi, I'm Tatianna Alvarez.
And I'm Cici Bushati, and this is Social Gist.
Christopher Thomas, the Palm Sunday Massacre killer, has been released this week from prison after serving only 2/3 of his sentence. He killed 8 children and 2 women in the 1984 Brooklyn tragedy. He was charged with 10 counts of murder. However, the jury convicted him of only manslaughter. The jury felt his crime was due to his cocaine addiction and emotional state. He now walks free.
Trump blasted out a number of tweets attacking the DACA program, the program that keeps child immigrants and young adults from being deported because they were brought into the United States illegally at a young age by their parents.
Africans seeking asylum found their way into Israel illegally. The government had set a deadline for April 1st to start deporting Africans back to Rwanda and Uganda. This caused an uproar in the community as Africans and Israelis came together to protest. As to whether they will be deported or jailed is coming closer. It has been pushed back to April 9th after the asylum seekers and Israelis created a petition.
On Sunday, President Trump took to Twitter and tweeted out a series of complaints, complaining about what? Our, quote, ridiculous liberal Democrat laws, end quote. According to Trump, the DACA deal falls under these laws. DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's a program that allows children and young adults to stay in the States even though they were brought here illegally. These kids are often known as dreamers.
Trump said these democratic laws are making it harder for Border Patrol to do its job, saying the catch and release method is impeding on bringing illegal immigrants to justice. Many of Trump's tweets called out Mexico as well, stating, if we don't have a wall, then DACA is dead. Today, Trump called in the National Guard to protect our borders.
The World Economic Forum claims that ending DACA could potentially put 800,000 people in danger of losing their jobs and being deported. DACA helped these immigrants come out of the shadows and allow them to obtain a social security number, a job, and open a bank account. If DACA is taken away, what happens to those people who use DACA to their advantage? DACA helped them create a life for themselves and their family.
Ending DACA could cost the states $460 billion within the next decade due to the loss of around 700,000 workers who could lose their jobs.
According to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the way DACA worked was you have to have a clean record, never been convicted of a felony or even a misdemeanor. You must have been brought to the United States before your 16th birthday, or you could have reapplied if you were under the age 31.
Immigrants are also required to be enrolled in school, have graduated high school, or have gotten a GED. They would have followed under the DACA program if they have been honorably discharged from the Armed Forces or Coast Guard.
These rules also counter Trump's repeated statements that most immigrants that come into the states illegally are bringing in drugs and committing crimes. He has had this viewpoint since the 2016 campaign. Here's a clip.
They're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
These immigrants were also brought here as kids. The World Economic Forum says most of these kids don't know they were brought here illegally. According to the Hetchinger report, there are over 600,000 students that were a part of DACA's program. DACA is keeping these students in the country, allowing them to receive a better education than they would get back home.
Many of these students come from countries that have poor educational systems. According to the World Atlas, the Dominican Republic ranks the 13th worst education system, and around 2,500 of these immigrants come from the DR. They also come from countries with violent backgrounds, heavy crime, and war. Venezuela, Honduras, and El Salvador are many of the southern countries that have these backgrounds, and they fall under this.
Here is a list of the top countries of origin for DACA recipients. These are hundreds and thousands of students getting sent back to countries with poor education, poor economic systems, and high crime rates.
Let's see how deporting these students will affect them. Here's a clip courtesy of the New York Times.
I was brought when I was 11.
I came when I was 7 from Brazil.
I was about 10.
I was 12 years old.
I was 7 years old.
About 8 years old when I came to the United States with my mother and my sister.
We crossed the border, but we were little.
My father was the first one to leave Mexico and come here in 2000. And then in 2001, my older siblings. So I've been here 18 years.
I'm 29 years old.
I am 20.
I am 19 years old.
I've been here for 21 years.
I am 27 years old now.
I am 23 years old and I am originally from Mexico.
Before DACA, I always felt like I was in between two worlds. I was born in Honduras, but if I were to go back to Honduras, it's like I'm foreign to them.
It's a tug of war. When you're undocumented, you're always just wary of the situations, of the locations, who you're talking to, how you're interacting with folks, ensuring that you don't do anything that will bring attention to you because you live a life of shadows.
You know, I have been able to accomplish a lot more than when I was undocumented. To get a social security number, loans from the bank, buy the car, a better job.
I would leave behind a network of friends, family that are here, because a lot of us actually are part of mixed status families.
It's scary for me because, you know, the type of job that I have, you know, motivating others and trying to tell them like it's okay when I don't even know if it's gonna be okay.
Every time my parents call me after 11 p.m., it's like my heart is racing. When you are an immigrant in this country, you wake up every day with the fear that you could be taken away, right? That your family could be broken up.
Well, I have been preparing my kids of, you know, this are the risks. This could happen to your dad and to me.
I just can't imagine, you know, my nieces and nephews being separated from their parents or them going back to a country that they don't know because this is their home. They shouldn't live with that fear that I had to grow up with. That's not a normal life, like that's not normal. And I know that like my friends that are US citizens don't go through that. And nobody should go through that.
I'm not leaving my home. And I think, you know, if Trump ever wanted to talk to us, if wanted to talk to these dreamers, he would realize that we love this country, we want to stay here. And
if it's taken away, I'm losing my job. I'm losing the opportunity to work in school. People don't understand, but it's a big thing. It's a huge thing. It's privileges that some people here take for granted.
You are not just taking something away from us, but you're taking something away from this country.
Democrats and Republicans alike have to stand up for us because there are DACA beneficiaries in every state. It's not just blue states.
This land is not a white America. It's not. This is a land of immigrants.
I mean, I was already a person before DACA. A lot of people see, oh, well, you know, what's going to happen after DACA? I'm not going down without a fight.
You know, whatever happens next, I love this country and I belong here.
I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting for the friends of mine that can't even stand up because they're scared.
We just want to stay here and contribute to this country, to the economy. We are good people. We're not criminals.
Well, thanks for tuning in and watch us on Globesvlille.com and on YouTube Wednesday nights at 7. So,
don't forget.
Are we dimming these lights or no? Your thoughts on that? Man.
yeah. I think it's unfair. just the simple fact that they were brought here, the Dreamers were brought here at a young age, too young to even know what wherever they were born was like. You know, all they know is America. Why would you take that away from them by sending them to a place they don't know?
Not even a place they don't know. Half these places aren't even that great of a country. You know, you have Venezuela that has like incredibly high crime rate. You have these places that their education isn't as great. You're gonna send them back to like nothing.
But that just goes to show that they don't care. And one of the things that really got me, man, was when Trump once said during like his campaign about how Mexicans are rapists and how they bring in their criminals. Mexico doesn't send like criminal. They walk across the border. Yo, I feel like in his mind they're just like, oh well, Mexico is just bringing them all in. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way.
But you know, I find it really funny. I think Trump's whole thing is just based off of racial discrimination. I feel like he has something against them because you know we have two borders. We're bordered by two other countries. We're Mexico and we have Canada. All right? Mm-hmm. So we have no problem with the Canadians. All of a sudden you're posing a threat. There are people who come from the northern border all the time too. It's not just from down south.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that America just happens to be geographically located above Latin America. Like, you know, like that's just so frustrating because I feel like his attack also is more towards, you know, like Hispanics because that's what we have in the South. And then anyone from the Middle East because, you know, they're all terrorists in his eyes. You know, like, what about European immigrants? Like, come on now.
What about people who convert and want to do acts of terrorism as well? It's all a home-based type thing. But, oh, wow, we're still rolling. Okay. Welcome to our weekly slant, right, is next. Oh, God.
This is so frustrating.
It was frustrating.
Present news stories from different news sources and show the slant that each side presents. After pointing out the differences between the sources, we will then show the similarities between the two, along with an outside source that is less likely to be affected by political bias.
The Democrats have really let them down. They've really let them down. They had this great opportunity. The Democrats have really let them down. It's a shame. And now people are taking advantage of DACA, and that's a shame. It should have never happened.
Let's take a look at MSNBC's side of the story.
It's certainly a reaction of pessimism for Democrats and advocates of DACA. One thing I can tell you is that the president's public statements and tweets are pure Stephen Miller. He, as you said, traveled to Mar-a-Lago with the president this weekend, and it clearly shows. Stephen Miller, for years, going back to his time on Capitol Hill, working under then-Senator Jeff Sessions, has been one of the most dogged and energetic opponents of DACA. This line, for instance, from the president, that people are coming to the United States because they want to get DACA, there's scant, if any, proof that DACA was a driver of illegal immigration. However, that line is something that Stephen Miller and folks in his broader cohort have been pushing for years.
Today, you can't take advantage of DACA if you're coming in now or in the future. So it's unclear if the president really understands this policy, and I also think
MSNBC has personalities providing commentary on the situation. They speculate that Trump's DACA tweets are the result of advisor Stephen Miller, who is a known opposer of the DACA bill. MSNBC defends DACA and denies Miller's past claims that the program was a driving force for illegal immigration. Finally, the MSNBC commentators question whether Trump is informed on the DACA bill. Now let's take a look at the Fox News side of the story.
Every day, every week on that border, there are unaccompanied minors, and minors who actually are accompanied, who by our own law, we have to accept into the country. So the idea that there are illegal people coming to this country very regularly under our laws is one of these loopholes that President Trump wants to stop. He wants to stop this catch and release, this insane problem that leads us to this whole question of amnesty 10, 20 years later.
And Democrats not wanting borders and everything. The most important thing here is that is him using Mexico as a cudgel, and NAFTA and the negotiations that are very sensitive and ongoing for a year. Republicans are very concerned about what the state of these negotiations are. And when he uses his sort of political bullying on Twitter over immigration and this caravan arriving and the Mexicans having a cash cow, which is NAFTA, and I'll punish them this way to get what I want out of them on immigration at the border, using NAFTA. That is the place where this becomes incredibly serious.
Times lead to positive outcomes.
You know, the president says and tweets a lot of things, but behind the scenes, you had the Secretary of Homeland Security traveling to Mexico a couple of weeks ago, meeting with officials, dealing with security on their southern border. So things are happening outside the sound and fury, perhaps.
Fox News discusses Trump's reasoning behind the tweets and how he wants to get rid of the loopholes that exist in the DACA bill. Fox News provides a point of view from the Democrats claiming that they want a sweeter deal that doesn't involve a lot of border money. They also link the DACA bill situation to NAFTA. A commentator on Fox News criticizes the president for political bullying on Twitter, while another commentator claims that there is more behind the scenes than that political bullying. BBC provides an in-depth, more informational look at the situation. The article gives background on DACA's recent history and looks at Mexico's point of view of the whole situation. That does it for this episode of the Weekly Slant. Do you think one side had too much bias, or do you think both sides presented the story evenly? Let us know your thoughts at Globesvlille on Twitter.